You know those books that you read and the bad guy keeps managing to surprise the good guys and keeps winning battle after battle after battle after battle, and you constantly find yourself asking what else could possibly go wrong? That's what this series was like. Hello, my name is Sarah. I'm an independent Christian author. You can find my book, Another World, on Amazon in paperback and Kindle edition. But I'm not here to talk about that. I just recently finished reading the Shadow and Bone series, so let's talk about it. The Shadow and Bone series is a trilogy, and as you can see from my edition, it actually is also a series on Netflix. Though, well, I have to say, while the Netflix series is what introduced me and got me wanting to read the books, I have not gone back to watch anything since season one. Sometimes once you have read the book, it's hard to watch the movie or the series or whatever the case may be. The Shadow and Bone trilogy would definitely fall into the fantasy category. There is magic, and it is, as many great stories are, ultimately a battle of good versus evil. However, it is very uncertain when you start the series who the enemy is, what the enemy is. That's the confusing part to put into words without giving too much away when you just start the book. Magic within this universe is wielded by people who are referred to as Grisha, and you are either born a Grisha or not. It is not something that you learn, and it is something that you are tested for within their country of Ravka. If you are tested and it is discovered that you are a Grisha, then you are taken from your family and you are taken to a place where you are going to learn how to wield your gift. There are different kind of Grisha, and as you want with any great fantasy book, she does include a list of Grisha, the type of Grisha that there are and what they do. She also includes a map of this world. The only thing missing is a glossary of pronunciations. You do have rogue Grisha, but they are definitely in the minority as opposed to those who are organized into what they refer to as the second army. So the first army being the army of normal people who are a part of the army under the king, and then the second army are the Grisha who are organized underneath a Grisha who is very unique and referred to as the Dark One. There's no name given for him, simply people call him the Dark One. And his power allows him to manipulate darkness, and not just in a sense of he can make you not be able to see, but in the sense that he can actually wield it in battle in physical ways. The premise of this story revolves around the fact that Ravka has a very big problem. First of all, they are at war with their neighbors. The second problem that Ravka has is that an ancestor of the Dark One, in wielding his power in irresponsible ways, created this wall of darkness that runs pretty much from north to south right across the middle of their country. And they refer to it as the Unsea, sea as in SEA, like the ocean, meaning they have a border that runs along an ocean, and that is the sea. This is the unsea, and they refer to it in that way because they travel on it very similar to the ways that you might travel on the sea, except that instead of moving simply by the movement of the water and the wind, you have Grisha who are manipulating elements to cause their ships to be able to pass through the unsea. However, you also have the problem of monsters that were created at the same time that the unsea was created. So their country is already in war. It is now torn in two, making it difficult to coordinate across sides, making it difficult to pass supplies across to both sides. And they have managed a way to get across, but it is not easy. It is not always successful. People are still constantly losing their lives going across. And the Dark One is telling everyone that it is his goal as the descendant of the Dark One who created the Unsea, that he is working to try to eventually be able to destroy it, which sounds great, of course, and sounds great to the people of Ravka. But the Dark One is not the main character. He's an important character, but he is not the main character. Despite the fact that all three books have a before and an after chapter that are told in the third person narrative style that we're usually used to, the rest of the book is in the first person past tense, where this story is told by our main character, Alina. And Alina, as far as she knows at the beginning of the story, is just a normal person. She is a cartographer, a map maker within the First Army, except one day things happen that put herself and, more importantly, her best friend Mal in danger. And in instinctual response to that danger, she reacts and has power, and they discover everyone around them discovers that she is a Grisha, and not just a Grisha, but like the Dark One, she is a Grisha that is very unique, that doesn't even come along once in a generation. And while the Dark One can manipulate and use darkness, Alina manipulates light. If there's even the tiniest bit of light somewhere, she can call it, and she can grow it. She can manipulate it, just as there are Grisha who don't make fire, but that if there is fire, they can manipulate it, they can grow it, they can shrink it, they can move it. She is the same with light. And of course, as you read through the books, she learns to wield her power in better ways, in more powerful ways, in more effective ways as time goes on. Book one is very different from book two and three, in that book one is really doing a lot of setup. And when I say that, I want to say I enjoyed it every bit as much as I enjoyed book two and book three. But book one really was setting things up. It was helping us understand, not only because we had to learn who Grisha are and what they can do, and the fact that there's all these different kinds of Grisha, and it's helping us to understand as Alina is learning it herself of what she can do, what can the Dark One do, who she can trust, what is happening between her friendship with Mal, who was her best friend, who she had grown up with, and who was also normal, but now they're separated because he's part of the first army, and now as a Grisha, she's part of the second army. Yes, there is romance within this story, and I'm not against a romantic story, but it is definitely not the focus, and I appreciate that. So you have relationship questions that are happening, but you have power questionings that are happening as she is brought in to be one of the other Grisha, and she is so unique and she's so special, and yet she's so unique, so she stands alone. And where does she align? So who will be her friends? Who will be her allies? And I have to say this as a very great compliment to Leigh Bardugo, the author, because you see that changing, which is so normal, human, that you see people in the first book who really weren't a fan of Alina, who maybe did not even like her, but begrudgingly accepted her simply because she was the only one with her power. And if they're going to get rid of the Unsea, then they need her. And yet you see by the end of the series and book three that she has friendships with these people. So even though book one is a lot of explanation, it does not get boring. It is very interesting because we need all of this. The entire concept, this whole Grisha verse, the whole universe of Grisha is fascinating. And ultimately, what they are doing within this first book is looking for this stag because his antlers are going to enhance her power. And as you see, as you read through the series and you look at the other covers, there are other animals who have the ability to increase her power even more. And so that is definitely part of the journey that she's going on through this trilogy, is finding these animals. I really appreciated all of the ups and downs and the twists and turns. I literally, in particular, as I was reading book 2 and 3, was constantly being like, okay, great. Yes, good guys. They have a great plan. Let's go. Let's go. And then there would come the enemy to just wipe out their plans. And, oh, well, okay, now what? And, you know, just like in war, people that we are getting to know through the story die or are injured in very grievous ways, and we have to move forward with, well, what happens next? And that was constantly the question that I kept asking myself, which I think is the sign of a good story, when you have so many things going on, and even when bad things happen, that you aren't just wanting to close the book and walk away, but instead you're saying, okay, well, what's next? What's next? And I definitely wanted to know what was next, what was next, what was next. This story has a happy ending. And that shouldn't be terribly surprising, but considering the fact that I have read many fantasy stories where, yes, good versus evil and good wins, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's always a happy ending, because sometimes good sacrifices itself. I hate to say that that's not a happy ending, because I am a Christian believer. Jesus died to save us. That was a happy ending. Of course, that's also different because it wasn't an ending. I really do love I really do love a good happy ending where, the two people who were in love but couldn't be together because they were facing everything that was going on. Now they get to be together and they get to be happy. And you get that in this book. And it doesn't come too early, so that now suddenly it's as if you're just reading a different book for the last few chapters. But there is a satisfactory, for me, amount of that story that is there to help you really feel the happy ending. And I loved that personally. I was very happy because I didn't expect it. And I think if you give these books a chance and you read them and you're in book 3 and you're getting near the end, you're probably not going to expect that happy ending either. I am not telling you how it happens. I just will say it was a very satisfying ending for me. A lot of questions were answered, a lot of the past was explained, and as I said, I love good twists and turns in a story, when you think you know what's going to happen and then you get turned on your head, and like I said, and you still want to keep reading because you want to know what's going to happen next. So, I think that this was an excellent read, and I would definitely highly recommend them. Again, if you are interested in the Netflix series, big differences between the show and the book. I did not go past season 1 because of that. Does that mean that the show isn't good? No, but that's up to you. My recommendation, though, is the book series. I would highly recommend Shadow and Book Trilogy by Leigh Bardugo. Fantasy story, very fun, very intense at times, very mysterious, very intriguing. Highly recommend. And if you are interested, my book, Another World, as I said, which is available on Amazon, I would classify my book more as Christian science fiction than I would as fantasy, though it definitely would have, I suppose, some fantasy like elements to it. It is not a long book. It's a quick and easy read. I hope you would consider checking it out. And if you're interested in following along, you can find us at the Demoms on Instagram and on TikTok as well.